All righty. Welcome, everyone. My name is Michael, and I am going to do another episode of Science and Spirituality, a new series that I developed a few weeks ago and have done a few episodes now. And some of those have been with my friend David, and I am going to let David introduce himself and go ahead and take it away, David. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, I'm so sorry. Michael, do you want to just stop and re-record that real quick so the job doesn't happen? Or
I mean, yeah, I guess.
so sorry. All right.
No, I see. I don't know. I don't know if this is gonna work.
Oh, all right. Never mind.
You know
I'm
what?
sorry.
You know what? Don't worry about it because
Okay.
it is what it is. We're not gonna sweat it. If I
Okay.
stop the recording now, I'm gonna have to do a new link, and yeah.
Oh, okay. No
Don't even,
worries.
don't even worry about it. This is
That just happened at the wrong time. Okay. All right. Hi, hey, it's good to be back on this series with Michael. You guys. I'm David Chanthavong. Um, I run my main group on Facebook. It's called School of Esoteric Science and Wisdom. I also have three other groups that I run, but that's the main one, and that's exactly how me and Michael met. My main background, I study all the major religions, but I am particularly focused on Buddhism because I was also a monk 4 years ago, and I've learned a lot. I was studying Buddhism and practicing its methods before I became a monk as well, and I still continue to do so. So, um, uh, yeah, after I got out the monastery, I decided to create groups about spirituality so that I could share this information that I've acquired with everybody. And, it's for everybody to share their information too. So that's exactly how me and Michael met. We are in each other's groups. I'm in his Sight, Sound, Spirit group. He's in my Science and Wisdom group as well. So, yep. And this is exactly why we're here today. We're going to bring you some answers that hopefully answer some of your questions. Jeez. Oh my God.
It's all right. No worries. Well, thanks for joining me today, David. What I wanted to talk about today is, I'm going to call it the art of observation. I did a short video, maybe 4 minutes and I don't know how many seconds exactly, and then I posted it on my YouTube channel, and that's what I titled it, The Art of Observation. And I did a presentation in the Sight, Sound, Spirit group yesterday about observation, and I spoke more about observation today. And basically, my take on that concept is in line with quantum mechanics. One of the things that I learned about quantum mechanics is that there's this thing called the observer effect. And what that is a way of describing the causal nature of consciousness. So when you have an intention of, let's say, studying something, and it doesn't matter what it is, let's say you want to study something about Buddhism, or you want to study about something about biology, or really anything for that matter, you begin with the intention, and the observation process begins the moment you think about what it is that you are going to research. And research is all about seeking the answers to these questions that you have regarding the subject that you're going to study. So observation is basically the ways and means of conducting the experiment. So every observation is an opportunity to first do that thing that we call observing. And when you observe something, you're receiving the information through one or more of your senses. And I am very passionate about understanding perception as being the lens that we are able to focus in those different sources of information. And there are, as far as I am aware, 8 earthly senses. We have our 5 basic senses of sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. And then we have 3 spiritual senses of space, motion, and time. So that's my overall take regarding what observation is. What is your understanding or interpretation of that concept?
Observation. All right. Well, my understanding of it, it's according to Buddhist understanding, it goes right in line with it. In Buddhism, there are 6 senses, and when you observe, you're observing from all 6 of your senses. Actually, you could actually shut out all the other 5 senses and focus on one of them to maximize the learning. Depending on what you are you learning through visual? Are you learning through listening? You could actually shut off all the other senses and learn through that way. What observation is pretty much you're listening. You're listening with either your eyes, your ears, your senses, and you're receiving this information and you're interpreting it to your own understanding through your own mind, and you're
Love
trying
it.
to make sense out of this information. You're studying. That's what observation is. You're pretty much
Right.
studying whatever perceived object or sound, or it could be object, visual or audio observation, and you're pretty much trying to gather and make sense of all the information you're receiving out of it. So that's what observation is to me.
Question. In regards, you're speaking of, are you speaking about being able to shut out these other senses and then
Yes.
utilize one particular sense? I have an idea. I think I know what you're talking about. What sense are you talking about, or what
Well, you could do.
chakra? What are we talking about when you talk about one sense?
Oh, well, I'm talking about the 5 physical senses and also the 6th sense being that of the mind, because you could observe and study your own thoughts and
Okay,
dreams
okay,
as well.
that's what
Yeah.
I thought. So when I talk about the 3 spiritual senses, a
Yep.
lot of people understand that to be intuition, the third eye, the mind. All of these things are connected. So yeah, that makes sense. And I think that's what we can achieve, those levels of awareness, in our meditative trances.
Yes.
What sort of
Well,
meditational practices do you do that help you become more aware of your 6th sense and sort of less aware of the basic 5?
well, there are 2 mainly in Theravada Buddhism. There is the Samatha meditation and Vipassana meditation, and both of them are very simple. One is single pointed meditation, where you focus your mind on a single point or a single object completely, which are your mind's eye, whatever you can see. And the other one is focus on your breath, where you shift your directed thought onto your breath. So this is called directed thought in Buddhism as well, where you shift your focus to something 100%, like just only your breath, where you only notice you're intaking your breath, or you're breathing in and you're breathing out. You're breathing in, that's all you notice. And that kind of shuts off everything around you. Now, it might not shut off all your senses, but the mind, the sound, when you get very deep into meditation, though, I mean, a lot of your senses actually, they kind of go mute. And
I like that.
and the only one that's left is your mind, and that's the whole focus too, is to clear the mind, because the mind is the ultimate. That's what you're trying to access and tap into. So, but you have to be still in a quiet environment, and you have to clear your thoughts. You have to go into silence. That's exactly what meditation is all about. It's silence, so that you could focus on and clear your mind. of clutter and thoughts are considered like distractions. So is sound.
Yes.
So very important to be in
Interesting.
quiet environment, less distracting.
You can't listen if you're not being still.
Yes, yes, because your attention is, is always shifting. Your mind's attention is always shifting according to what's moving or what's going on, what you're hearing and stuff. It's all, you're trying to unify it into a single source of single point of attention, and that's the whole focus of samatha and vipassana. But those are two different methods. But that's the method that the Buddha used as well. He also used other methods, but those are the two most popular ones that are taught all across every school in Buddhism. The Tibetans practice it, the Chinese, Japanese, the Southeast Asians, all the schools practice those methods, and they also have their own too. Their own unique methods. So, yep.
Awesome. Yeah, I like. I've practiced a few, actually, now that I think about it, several different types of meditation. The breathing one, I'm going to say minimal success. Years ago, I was
a lot of practice.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna fall asleep first.
that was like my biggest issue, was like being so peaceful that I was like, I think it's time to go to sleep now. And another fun one that I have not done for years that sounds similar to the contemplation thing is the type of meditation where you take an object, and I would have a rock, and I would just look at that rock and observe it, and just I would sort of become aware of how it felt, but that wasn't the point of that exercise. The point of it was to literally focus the attention through this particular sense that we call vision. And it was really interesting. I think I might do that with this particular
Hey, that's a nice piece of crystal. Amethyst,
yeah,
right?
so this amethyst, I have a pretty nice collection. This is one of my newest members that I'm learning how to connect with and communicate with and interact with. So even this right here, what I'm doing, I am interacting, I'm speaking, I'm feeling, I'm communicating, and its energy is helping me fine-tune my energy. So all of these observations that we make do require the skill of paying attention. So when I think about concepts like time, and I hear people say things like, oh, I have spent years wasting my time, I really find that curious, because in my very humble opinion, there's no real way to waste time, because you have an infinite supply of it. You can remain ignorant to whatever the universe has been showing you by thinking that you had wasted your time during a certain experience or during a certain duration of years. I feel like the wise way to view the experience is by acknowledging that there is truth in everything that you observe. So if, for example, you have in your mind an experience that still causes you to be disturbed or troubled, then obviously there's more to learn about that experience. There's something that you haven't resolved. And it comes down to being able to tell the difference between what you think is really happening versus what you feel is actually occurring. So your feelings are these guides, these spiritual senseis, if you will, that allow us to tap into this infinite source of information that is coming from space-time itself. So this is sort of the point of special relativity in terms of first unifying space and time, and then showing the relationship between energy and matter. And it all has to do with this really mysterious constant called the speed of light, which has no acceleration. In other words, it doesn't change its velocity through the vacuum of space. It does change its velocity, which is speed and direction combined, when it interacts with whatever it is that is going to receive that information. So right now, we are observing each other's energy. We're seeing representations of electromagnetism and photons, a series of them turning on and off, because the duration, the lifespan of the particle formation of a photon is only a slice of time. So the lifetime of a stream of, let's say, photons or light is pretty close to being infinite, because the scope of electromagnetism, or the range of it anyway, is infinite. So now we're talking about converting the information into a format that makes sense to you. And when it makes sense, it's because of this phenomenon of resonance. What is your understanding of the value of sound in particular?
My understanding of the value of sound, well, it's all information. It's all audible information. It's something that you can't see and you can only hear, and you have to decipher its meaning through means of uh, observation and, well, not only that, but also language as well. Language is very important when studying types of sound too, or because language in itself requires sound to be spoken. So that's one way to look at language in itself. Now just regular sounds from everywhere else. How do you just you have to be able to correctly distinguish types of sound as well in order to kind of learn and differentiate and pick apart what means what. And like if you hear a car passing by, like right now I could hear the cars outside. You know it's a car because you're used to it and you've grown up, you're hearing these sounds and you're familiar with these sounds that come from the
Pattern
exhaust.
recognition.
Yes. Oh, yeah, I didn't know that terminology, but there you go. Yeah, pattern recognition. That you could say it pretty much like that. So it takes time. It takes time to make sense of this kind of sound, and over time you'll experience these kind of sounds, the same sounds over and over again. It's repetition, and you'll automatically know what type of sound it is through pattern recognition, as you said. Certain sounds describe certain things. You can tell which kind of sound is coming from an instrument. You could tell that it's actually an instrument because of the types of sounds there are. Or you could tell what thunder is just by hearing it, and feeling it too, actually.
Yeah.
Yep. So and seeing the lightning that comes. The lightning comes before the thunder. But yeah.
Interesting, huh? It's interesting how there's
Yeah.
this relationship between light and sound, because it seems to me, or it's becoming more apparently clear anyway, that
Yeah.
light and sound are unified, because there really is always, and maybe it's an inverse relationship in terms of when you are viewing something where there is the apparent absence of light, then the presence of sound becomes more apparent. So it's really interesting that that sort of duality that is very nicely described in the Tao Te Ching. And I am learning how to reclassify or redefine some of the terminology, such as good and bad, right and wrong, even on and off, true and false, go and stop. They're really just sort of our ways of understanding the unification of these concepts. So now we're in the realm of causality,
Yes.
which I feel reigns supreme. There is always a way to understand the sequence of events by looking at the cause and the effect, the call and the response, the action and reaction.
Yep.
And your understanding of causality, and I know the answer to this, but I want you to tell any of the audience that might be watching this video, what is your interpretation of causality using the terminology from the faiths that you practiced?
Causality. All right. Cause and effect. Everything has an origin. Everything has an explanation, because all that exists in the universe, be it physical or non-physical, is cause and effect, action and result, which is also known as karma. That's exactly what it is. That's in Buddhism.
Yeah.
Well, karma also has a much deeper meaning than just cause and effect, but it also means like negative energy or negative matter created by these negative energies. But cause and effect, everything in the universe came into origin, including sound, light, matter, dark, all that through cause and effect. All right. There has to be a catalyst to all this.
I like that word, catalyst.
Yeah.
I almost, I think I might like that word even better than cause.
Yeah.
Where catalyst? What is a catalyst?
Well, the catalyst is the starting point, or the creation of the action, or
the initiator.
Yeah, there you go. That's the catalyst. It's the starter. It's the initiator, pretty much.
Love it. I love it.
Nothing comes into being, physical or non-physical, without the catalyst. And there always has to be the catalyst, the cause, and then that way you also have the effect, or there always has to be the action and the result. So that's what causality is. It's our cause and effect is. And how things came into being, well, according to my understanding, is it's the actions behind the consciousness, what your consciousness, which is the nothingness, your soul, your mind, your whatever you want to call it, it's all describing the same thing. Desires, intentions, and cravings, they're all created by craving. Actually, the creation story of mankind, of how humans came into being, according to Buddhism, is because of craving. Because before we came in this current yuga or kalpa or aeon, humans came into being from the higher Brahma realms above the six heavens. At first, we were lightened beings, beings full of light. We could fly through the air. We did not require sustenance or any food to keep us going, but over time, I guess, we as beings, these light beings, began to be interested and started consuming solids, so that therefore we became more solid. This is according to at least
more dense.
Yeah, yep. We became more dense through consumption of solids. So that's according to the Buddha himself, and he had the ability to go to see many lifetimes ago, and yeah, that's pretty much cause and effect, and we're still doing it today, and a lot of people are still unaware of cause and effect right now. So that's exactly why we're talking about this, so that we can spread awareness. Everything in the whole world is cause and effect. Everything that you experience, why you were born here, all of that is through cause and effect. And it has, whether you believe in reincarnation or not, it doesn't stop existing just because you don't believe in it. I'll tell you that.
and this seems to sort of fall into place in terms of another word that I really enjoy, and that's reason. So your reason for being becomes more clear, at least in my opinion, when you are paying attention to the present moment. So again, observation is an art form, and it does require practice. If you are unaware of your abilities to communicate, perceive, and create, it's going to be difficult for you to be observant because you're not
very difficult.
You're not ready to pay attention. Yeah. Totally. I do want to backtrack a little bit in terms of what you said about karma having a deeper meaning in terms of it being negative. I feel like,
well, it's both negative and positive, but it's mostly
good. Because, well, is it mostly negative because we learn the hard way?
Yeah, through mistakes. Yeah, and plus,
right,
because we're in a realm that's considered lower, so it's a negative, kind of more negative than positive here.
And it's more, and it's definitely more dense, and the vibrations are oscillating at a slower rate. So I like to use terminology from music in terms of, well, gosh, if you're talking about sound, one of the qualities of we'll just say higher frequencies includes a term called presence. So if you, for example, play guitar and you have a guitar amp, lots of times one of the adjustments on it will be described as being presence, and it's sort of the how can I describe presence? Presence is
the here and now.
It has a dual meaning. So to be present means you are in your moment of awareness, and then presence itself also means gifts, and then it also is an awareness of these things that we cannot see. So to be present during, let's say, the presence of God's presence, you can start to hear these little feedback loops, if you will, that are occurring in our mind's eye. And the imagination really is the engine of creation, because you use the information that's coming in. Maybe it's thoughts, maybe it's light forms, maybe it's sound forms, maybe it's ideas, beliefs, emotions, all these pieces of information you can use to sort of construct the reality that you wish to experience. And then the game, or the path that we take, will determine how we feel about the reality along the way. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, sorry, I was just trying to signal my kids. Could you repeat the question one more time, please?
It feels like as we go along our journeys, what matters the most is how we feel about our reality while we're experiencing it. So instead of, let's say, getting caught up in the distractions that we do become attached to, why would we not choose to pay attention to the experience itself, however it's presented to us? Because if you predetermine, let's say, the outcome as feeling a certain way before you actually experience it, then you're placing an expectation. You're making an assumption about something that you're not supposed to know. You're not supposed to know how reality will feel like before you experience it. What are your thoughts on
Yeah.
that?
Well, it's all trial and error, you know. That's what life is. You know, you got to go through the phases of learning.
Yeah.
If you place an expectation on something or a preconceived thought about something, you're not only destroying your chances of learning from whichever experience that is, or it could be a person too, that you're learning from, or object or whatever. You've destroyed um, that learning process by placing a preconceived notion or thought over it. Um, well, there are some notions that are correct though, like all nothing lasts forever,
Mhm.
especially physical matter.
Impermanence, right?
Yeah, and that's actually true. You could also use that to kind of verify and compare with whatever you're observing
I love it.
to see if that's true or not. You know, if see if that theory or is true or not. And so far that I've found is totally true. And that goes for everything, not just physical matter. That goes for attachments, relationships, feelings. They come and go. Sound, light. You know, nothing lasts forever. Everything's impermanent. So far that I have observed and studied this
Mhm.
whole time.
I
So
agree. Yeah.
yeah,
And I'm willing to alter my belief in regards to that notion. However,
yeah,
as it stands now, it seems pretty evident that that is an absolute truth, if you will, because
yep,
and
absolutely.
until I see otherwise or observe otherwise,
Yep,
I'm going to maintain that level of awareness as being truthful because
yeah,
it is useful. If you get caught
right.
up in the idea of thinking that something is meant to be a certain way
Forever,
but
right?
forever or even for a set period of time,
Right.
and any of these expectations really does set you up for disappointment. At least that's what seems to
Totally.
happen with me.
It happens to us all until you figure it out that nothing
Yeah.
really does last forever. So
Yeah.
you have to, well, for most people, they have to experience it because you know, experience you'll actually feel it. You know, feel
Mhm.
the outcome of it, the result of it. So,
Mhm.
yeah, unfortunately, we all had to go through this experience, this learning process, this trial and error, um, to verify, you know, our some of our beliefs, um, like impermanent. Anika.
Michael here.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I at this point in my journey, I am okay with the realization that my destiny has no final destination.
Yeah. Oh, there's never gonna be unless you you know, attain to or finally reach nirvana.
Yeah, and I think this is what happens when people create their own versions of hell. They get stuck in the paradigm of thinking that maybe they deserve to be punished, or they tend to believe that reality is happening to them as opposed to happening for their
For
benefit.
them. Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty amazing. And
It is.
I find it humorous. Um, and that's not to say that I laugh at other people's suffering. I laugh at my own self because I am to the point to where I've accepted that suffering is a choice. And
Mhm.
on the flip side of that, humans always deserve however they are currently feeling, good, bad, or otherwise. So if you
Totally.
feel good, there's a reason for that. Goes
Yeah.
back to causality.
Yep.
If you feel bad or poorly, and you're, let's say, maybe not appreciating life, for whatever reason. There's lots of reasons, and it's very understandable and therefore rational and
Yep.
reasonable when you hear people say, oh, well, life sucks because of da 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 da, and they explain why they feel that life sucks. Maybe they've had an experience or a series of experiences, especially as a child, where it had been traumatic and it had been painful and excruciating, and they don't want to go through that again. So they tend to observe certain experiences as being, oh no, not that again. And
Well, the lesson repeats until you learn from it, you know.
Mhm. Yep.
And that's always gonna be, is always gonna be like that. There's really no way around it, you know. And that's exactly why this whole planet, this existence, could be seen as just a learning station, you
Yeah.
know, learning
Yeah.
how to purify yourself or learning not to do certain things, what you're not supposed
Mhm.
to do. And that's exactly why you're still here on this earth, because you're learning not to do the same previous mistakes of as your previous lives that caused the rebirth of you into this realm, into that
Mhm.
specific family you were born into. You have to take accountability for all of that, responsibility for being born into that family you've been born into, and experiencing the things that you've been experiencing throughout your whole life. It's all your own doing, you know. Until you have learned that the cycle and the lesson just only repeats. And so I hope
It's
people
kind of
don't.
like I just thought of it, the directions on a shampoo bottle,
Yeah,
lather, rinse, and repeat. I mean,
yeah,
until you get the
yeah,
job done, right? Until
yeah,
until the formulation or the resolution occurs
yeah,
to you, then yeah, you're going to have to continue to put the work and effort into that
yeah,
experience.
yeah. Is it? Oh, totally, totally. And that's exactly why this whole existence in itself is education. You know, it's all learning. You're gonna learn until the day you leave this planet. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, um, so take in what you could, be as open-minded as possible. There's so many different ways to explain one single thing, you know. But once you realize that they're all explaining the same thing, everything makes a lot more sense to you, kind
Yeah.
of. So that's where I'm kind of at this current stage of my life after studying all the major religions. You look at a lot of their stories; they're all pretty much depicting the same story: a battle of good and evil
Mhm.
between the gods and the demigods, or the titans and the demons, whatever. It's all talking about a story between the higher beings and the lower beings, or the perceived lower beings, which aren't very low at all. They're higher than humans. They're more powerful. you know, like for example, like Lucifer, he was an angel, and he had his fellow angels as well that he banded with that went against God in the Bible. Well, it's the same. It's kind of like the same story in Greek mythology too, where Zeus and the Olympians go against Kronos and the Titans.
Mhm.
Exact same story across all
Yeah.
major religions. The only differences are being cultural, terminology. Some are older. So yeah, it's all a learning experience. Every single thing you learn through all your senses.
Mhm.
You can infinitely learn um, through just one of your senses alone.
Mhm.
Because you can always be learning if you just observe that one sense and what you have learned from that one sense.
Mhm.
It's infinite
Yeah, if
information.
and if you have the ability
Yeah.
to use just one sense
Yep.
and still learn by observing and seeking the truth in the light being sound, what tends to happen is you'll realize that these other sensations may just simply not be relevant in your present moment.
Yep.
So if you become too dependent on using one sense, let's say your sense of sight, by predetermining that something is horrible, for example, because you believe the portion of the information as being harmful instead of beneficial, then you're going to become attached to that
Yep.
type of observation, that
Yep.
sensation, and then you create these attachments that will lead to fearing the loss of those attachments, which is the whole thing about suffering.
And
So
that's how you create a bunch of falsehoods too, by relying too much on one sense,
yeah,
like you said, the sense of sight. And you see that with a lot of people today. Oh, I can't see it, so it doesn't exist. You know, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
that's you hear that, you see that a lot. So that's just a very fine example you used there.
yeah.
I just wanted to add, but you go ahead and continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. The reason why I brought that up is because, and maybe my question to you is,
Yeah,
what sense do you tend to focus on
myself, huh?
when you want to seek the truth in a particular message? Is there a particular
My,
sense that you like to use?
my heart, the heart will tell you if it's true or false.
Oh, I
That's
love
all the
it.
heart really knows.
I love
Um,
it.
for example, I could use my eyes to focus on an object, but simultaneously, I'm using my heart to verify um, the quality of it or true or
Pattern
false.
recognition, right? You're feeling, you're listening with your heart. So
Yeah.
really that comes down to being the sense of sound. So you can feel sound obviously with your ears,
Oh,
but
you can feel the energies too with your heart.
you can feel it with your heart, and I
Yeah.
think that's a more efficient way of processing sound
Yeah.
energy, because again, sound has three meanings. It's pretty obviously going to mean the most to people in terms of it being sonic vibration that we hear. It also has to do with your state of mind. So to be peacefully sound, for example,
Yeah.
um, is a form of resonance. And then sound is also defined as a body of water. And the body of water, I feel that we're talking about, is this ocean of awareness that the universe is presenting
Made it.
to us.
Yeah.
So
Probably.
I realize that one of the senses that I don't use very often is my sense of smell. And
Yeah. Yeah.
we
Totally.
form a lot of our memories through these experiences where we have an intensity of an aroma that is sometimes beautiful and sometimes horrible. I don't know. I don't know if you've ever smelled decaying flesh.
I
Uh,
have.
it, it's a pretty
Yeah.
sickening smell, right?
Oh
You
yeah.
you will
I
you will
mean,
never forget that smell, and you will always know through pattern recognition when you are smelling decaying flesh.
totally. Through experience, you know.
Yeah.
Um, See, yeah, we've all come across dead animals, roadkill, dead deceased loved ones, whatever, or even other people that you don't know.
Yeah.
So I've come across all that in
Yeah.
my experience on this planet so far,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's not a pleasant smell, of course not. Flesh, and that's why flesh in itself is kind of looked down upon to even have a flesh body by the higher beings,
Uh-huh.
including the sages of this world, like
Yeah.
Jesus, like the Buddha.
Uh-huh.
They totally, you know, they totally tell you that this existence as a human is a lower existence than what is available to you above us. You know,
So let me ask you,
yeah.
do you believe that angelic beings or celestial beings actually believe that human flesh is somehow lower, or is that the depiction of humans that maybe are ashamed of their human form?
It could be, yeah, it's both actually. It is considered lower because literally they are in the sky and above us in another dimension, and also they have superior bodies that don't smell, that don't age,
That don't require food.
or medicine. You know, it doesn't require none of that. It's a self sufficient
Right.
celestial body of a deva or an angel. Yeah.
Interesting.
So they have completely different bodies from ours that are superior to human bodies in every single way. They outlive us, way outlive us in the heavens, and they don't experience none of the bad things like odor, aging, illness that your physical body comes into contact with, pain, physical, emotional, and mental. They don't experience none of that in the heavens. It's considered a realm of a desire realm in Buddhism, because you get whatever you desire. You experience divine joy in the heavens, but it's like one of the extreme sides of happiness or positivity. But it's not the ultimate state. They're not perfected beings. They're not enlightened beings. Um, and this could be proven by looking at sacred texts. There are many examples of divine beings from the heavens that have a problem with their anger. You know what I mean? There are many examples of many of these deities. So um, yeah. Overall, yes, they do look down upon the human physique because theirs is superior in every single way, and
Interesting.
they could also travel between dimensions with their bodies. We can't do that unless we tap into our consciousness. Yes.
Yeah, I am learning how to transverse dimensions, and
Oh yeah.
it is all
Yeah.
in my imagination. However, I view the imagination as being closer to the actual truth
Mm-hmm.
than the
Mm-hmm.
realities that we experience through our logical part
Right.
of our consciousness. So
Right.
I'm okay being irrational, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and
That's exactly what we are. We're irrational.
yeah,
But
I mean,
we go by the new standard.
if you're always rational and measured in your life during these experiences, I feel like you're going to become very frustrated and confused because you're going to become attached to the idea of thinking your way through the problems that
Right.
you are actually creating by
Yep.
thinking that they are problems in the first place. They're really not. There's just there's paradoxes, there's puzzles, there's riddles, there's mazes.
Yep.
There's a treasure trove of experiences that we get to experience, not have to experience. We get to experience these wonderful things.
I like how you worded that. We get to experience because it's our choice, whether you know it or not. To experience these
Yeah,
things.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I think that's why the Buddha taught about suffering
It's
being a part of our existence. I mean, it is
yeah.
present. It is also necessary until you learn why it was never necessary in the first place. And that's sort of the most amazing paradox I feel in regards to Buddhism, or at least that's what I gathered, is the whole idea of suffering is a choice, suffering is necessary,
Yeah.
and present. And yet there is a way to absolve yourself of all of these distractions and attachments and desires and points of reference where you feel like there's not going to be a change. You feel you don't feel it though. I think you think it. So it becomes imperative to understand the difference between levels of knowing and levels of awareness. So you may think you know something, but until it resonates with you and you feel it with your heart,
Yeah.
then and only then does that information become a part of you and will inspire you to continue on the journey.
Totally. Totally. Yeah, one thing that we cannot escape, though, as part of this human existence, is aging, illness, and death. It's inevitable.
And thank God for that, though, because I don't know if you've have you ever seen a movie about vampires?
Yeah, of course. Buffy the
Okay,
Vampire Slayer, Twilight.
there's all
Yeah,
kinds of, what is the biggest dilemma that a vampire ends up having? Well, it's coming to grips with their immortality.
yes. Yeah.
So you think that you want to live forever in this human form, and
Oh no,
yet
not me.
when once you're struck with the realization that that's what's going to happen because you become a vampire, it's like, hey, wait a
Right.
minute, I don't know, what did I sign up for? I mean, geez,
Exactly.
that to me sounds more like hell than anything else. And that's sort of goes in line with this whole push towards transhumanism and artificial intelligence and all of these other things that you may think you want that, but
Right.
do you? Be careful what you wish for, because you're gonna get it. And
Exactly.
I don't know. To
Exactly.
me, the idea of being stuck in a physical form
Yep.
is not only unattractive, but is just basically the opposite of what I wish to feel anyway. I
Right.
prefer feeling free
Yep.
of the physical limitations and constraints that
Yep.
are based upon the laws of nature, the laws of physics. All of these things are, again, just simply information. What do you make out of that level of truth? Well, to me, it's a godsend, because I know I have absolute there's no way around it. The moment you are conceived, you begin the process of dying. And it's not a matter of if, it's always a matter of when and where. So I just look at it as, hey, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to die. I've never feared death. I have
I have
feared,
before.
I have feared
Yeah.
dying in certain ways or feeling pain while that process may occur, but I've never been afraid of dying.
I didn't reach that stage of, until I'd say I joined the army and went to Iraq. I kind of accepted that I was already dead while I was on, in the on the battlefield or whatever, on tour, because that was the situation that we were kind of in. So we kind of had to. If you go to war expecting to live, you're most likely going to die when it
Wow.
gets when things hit the fan.
Mhm.
And if you go to war expecting to die, you most likely come out alive. You know, because you're gonna fight with all you got. You've already given up. You've already accepted that you're dead, and you're pretty much at the point that you're gonna try to take out as much as the opposition as possible before you die. So that's the kind of mindset it puts you in, and it took there's a type of energy it gives you with that as well. Um, by having no fear in you, no fear of death, you have a lot more energy. So yeah, right now at this point, I'm currently not afraid of death because I was only afraid of pretty much the painful aspect, the physical
Mhm.
pain. Yeah,
Right.
a slow, painful death, such as bleeding to death, or chronic pain until the moment of death. I don't know. Yeah, those are things that nobody wishes for, but it's only temporary though. Doesn't last forever. It's only temporary as long as we have a human body. And when we pass to the next life, we're not gonna have these bodies. Well, unless you get reincarnated back here again. Yeah, but that takes time, it doesn't happen immediately. Some people don't get reincarnated for over 1,000 years. They just stay as ghosts. So, I mean, that's according to their karma. They earned it to stay, which is a realm that's considered lower than the human realm. And it's still a form body. They're in another dimension. All these beings are in different dimensions. That's why we can't see these beings, except the animals from the animal realms. We share the same planet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's what I have to say about death. Death, I welcome it with open arms, and I can't wait for it.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I've had that same line of thinking. It's like that's going to be a very interesting part of the journey. I've already experienced enough of the Kundalini rising and release of my own DMT through certain breathing exercises. So I have a pretty good idea of what it's going to feel like. And yet I'm not placing, any expectations on that. I just have sort of an idea that it's going to be a smooth and interesting part of my journey. So I don't worry about how I'm going to go, when I'm going to go, or where I'm going to go. I just know that I'm going to go. So I'm going to let that part of the story unfold, because that is the biggest mystery of all.
Well, it shouldn't be a mystery if you know exactly what's right and wrong. A good death, I want to say, is, and I got this from another video of one of the Tibetan lamas that I do. I watch a lot of his videos, but he's now deceased. But he brought up a good death is when you know where you're going at the moment of death. A bad death is if you don't know where you're going.
Not knowing. Oh, yeah, that would be scary, right?
It's very scary. Well, yeah, uncertainty is the
it's so
cause of fear.
funny. It's so funny when people talk about near-death experiences. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What
No,
were you going to say there at the end?
Yeah, I was done.
Okay.
Yeah.
I enjoy hearing about people that have near-death experiences. And I had one a few years back where I got back into doing Aikido, and I found out pretty quickly that I have vertigo. So doing all of these, spinning motions, it literally made me nauseous. And the last session that I ever did, I was also dehydrated, and I felt so nauseous, even as I was driving home. And I was supposed to go to do a recording session, and as I was driving, my hands like literally clenched, and I thought I was having a heart attack, and it was scary. I had to pull over. I had to somehow call 911, and I was transported to the hospital. I got treated for dehydration, and
terrible.
Yeah, it was scary. So I consider that a near-death experience, because I honestly thought I was dying. Other people that have had the near-death experiences where they see the white light and all that, that's also interesting, because it seems like a lot of people have this idea that they are supposed to go to the light. If you die thinking that heaven is going to be a certain way, then that is still an expectation. So I think when people have the near-death experience and they see the light and they think they're supposed to go to the light, the reason why they come back is because they haven't learned how to let go of all fear. Because if you die, like you said, thinking or not knowing that you are going to whatever heaven actually is, or nirvana, whatever terminology you are used to, I think what happens is, if you let's say you die and you see the light, you think you're supposed to seek the light because the alternative is hell, at least from your point of view. Then that means you haven't learned what you're supposed to learn, because it's not about a final destination. It's not about going to heaven because you think that's the reward for living a good life. The inner peace can be achieved while you are still in this human form. And this is something I think the Buddha taught us, is that there is a way to experience nirvana before you actually pass away. And that was his gift to the world, was like you have described in many different occasions. I mean, there's different things that you have to do. You have to put the work in. You have to walk the walk, and you have to take that eightfold path, and you have to listen to all of the information and process it, and do the clearing of your mind and all of these different things.
Clearing of your mind and clearing of your karma. You're purifying your mind, and you're also purifying your karma too, simultaneously. So that's exactly why we walk the walk and talk the talk. And you're creating these energies that will literally destroy karmic matter, and then you'll be able to ascend from the fact of being lighter, less dense. Because we're here because of density. We've created density ourselves. So therefore, we deserve to be in a more dense realm.
And what's funny is I'm currently studying about gravity, and I started with Newton's universal law of gravitation and the laws of motion, and now I'm in the middle of learning about general relativity, and still maintaining a fairly decent comprehension of special relativity. And it all has to do with light. It has to do with the density and the volume of matter. So you have this inverse relationship. So mass is equal to density times volume. And the more dense, so let's say I have my hand and it has a certain mass to it, okay? And mass is just another way of describing physical matter. So it's the quantity of physical matter. So if I clench my fist and I compress the information to become more dense,
you have more mass.
I'm taking up less volume. The overall mass stays the same. So the it's called the
but the concentration has shifted.
Right. It's more dense. It's changed its format. Now with my fist, I can do some pretty destructive things. I could punch somebody in the face, for example. Okay. Now, if I understand that mass by itself is just one property, and I divide the two properties, or the sub-properties or qualities of mass being density and volume, and I expand my awareness and I become less dense in my hand, then I'm occupying more space, a greater volume of space, if you will. So your awareness, as you expand, you're taking up more space and you're decreasing the density. And that's what enlightenment is. So enlightenment is literally becoming lighter or less dense while you are taking up more volume of space.
Definitely. Well, in Buddhist terminology, enlightenment is the final of 4 stages of awakening, awakening being the first. Enlightenment is complete detachment and destruction of desire and ignorance, and therefore you've attained to nirvana while still alive, and upon physical death you will not be reborn ever again into these lower realms of suffering and existence. You'll be in forever bliss, which is nirvana, described as a state in between existence and non-existence, physicality and nothingness, in the
Love it.
middle of it.
I love it.
Nirvana. So
That's
because
perfectly balanced, right?
yeah, that's totally right in the middle of it. I mean, to many religions and faiths, heavens is the ultimate, destination. But in Buddhist, in Hindu, and Jain, it's not. There's a higher realms above the heavens. Heavens, it's higher than a human realm for sure. Heaven, but not higher than
heaven. And it seems to me, and I totally resonate with what you're saying, and it makes even more sense now, because people have this idea of what they think heaven will feel like. But again, if you predetermine what you think something should feel like, or you think it will feel like before you actually experiencing it, you're selling yourself short. You're placing a limitation on the experience.
Totally. And that's what we all do. I mean, so I still do that too.
We all do it. Yeah, I do the same thing. And that's okay. I mean, that's part of what makes us human. And then we always have these opportunities to sort of refresh, recharge, and wash away the toxicities and cleanse our palates and become more clear of sight. So I think it's just a wonderful process. Do you have any concluding remarks or statements? I have to run an errand, so I wanted to wrap up our thing today.
I had so many missed calls I ignored. Well, our conclusion to this episode is observation requires focus, and focus through one of your senses or all of your senses or a few of them, whatever. But it requires focus. If you can't focus, if you can't listen with a particular sense, then you can't learn. Your learning won't be effective, So when you observe something, make sure you give that sense, that object, to whatever sense you're perceiving it through, 100% attention.
Love
That's
it.
the best way to observe something.
Perfect. And I'm going to wrap it up by simply saying this. We can invest our time wisely by simply paying attention to however we are currently feeling. So we don't even have to pick and choose which sensations we're going to use, because the information is going to come to you in waves. And there's 3 properties of every waveform. There's the amplitude, the wavelength, and the frequency. The wavelength and the frequency are combined and proportional, inversely proportional. So the shorter the wavelength, the faster the oscillation.
Yep.
And then the amplitude is just another way of describing the intensity of the information. So if something is super intense, right? If you touch a hot stove, that feeling is going to be super intense. How intense? Yeah. Well, it's going to get your attention because it's relevant to your physical state. If you don't pay attention to that feeling, you're going to burn yourself.
Exactly. Yep.
Simple. So thank you, David. As always, I enjoyed this conversation. Let's do more of these. I know we're going to do some more of your new series series. There's
no order for that.
Yeah. So I look forward to that. Check out my other platforms. I have a YouTube channel that is Everard Music. I have an Instagram at Everard Music. My website is michaeleverard.com. And my new book is published and available on Amazon, and that's called Why Are We Here on Earth by yours truly, Michael Everard. And thank you for listening and paying attention, and namaste.
Thank you.